I'd like to bring a big thank you to, on behalf of the Panther baseball program, our players and coaches and our supporting cast, a big thank you from what you guys did for us 18 years ago when I came and talked to you and asked for money and we're trying to build a facility. Actually, I've got a copy of what was in the paper and the donation that you guys have given us as a group, and I want to thank you for that. It was something that was very special and well needed at the time. And you guys now have, in winning our state championship last year, several of you in this room I know contribute to our ring fund and things like that, and I want to also thank you again for that. I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I'd like to take you on a journey of a Panther baseball player. Now, most people think that we just show up to the baseball field, about sometime in February, start playing ball games into February. We just get together and have a team and run them out there and let's see what happens, and we go from there. It's actually a little more than that. We start in November, and this year in November, our first baseball meeting, we had 46 young men showed up at that meeting. We started talking to those guys about goals and about expectations and rules and the biggest thing that you want to look at them eye to eye and see is if they really do have a passion for baseball. And if they have a passion for baseball, then all the other things you're fixing to lay on them, you can get by with that, and they'll buy in. We start talking about self-discipline. We start talking about accountability. The things that this room is just, you guys, the things that I'm saying are just dripping in this room, the self-discipline, the accountability, the things that you've done in your lives. And we know that that's a big part of life. It's very important that these little things that we start talking about at that day, like for instance, when it's time to bring your baseball stuff to the baseball field, whose responsibility is it? Well, a freshman's going to tell you, if Mom forgot to put my socks in the bag, in my bat bag. Well, it's not Mom's responsibility. It's your responsibility. You're the baseball player. That accountability, that little bit of self-discipline, starts going a long way. And we tell them this: faith, family, education, then baseball, then you, and then her. And we try to portray it in that order so they understand our priorities on those things. It's very important that we understand about our faith. We start giving them stuff. We give them a code of conduct that's got to be signed by their teachers. And they look at you like you are an absolute idiot. My math teachers got to sign on this piece of paper before I can play baseball. And there's several reasons that we do that. On this code of conduct that they take to those teachers, it talks about getting to class on time. It talks about dressing right. Your attire, you're well groomed. Now you define well groomed how you want to define it, but well groomed. I don't ever tell them your hair's got to be as short as mine. You can't have facial hair. I just tell them, we all need to look the same. If we're going to be a team, we need to look the same. So that's where it all starts. We start talking about great attitudes. An attitude is everything. We start talking about body language. You walk in the classroom and sit down, and you're slumped down in your chair, your desk, and your teacher looks over at you, and really, you're here to get an education. Your body language says that you don't want to be there. So it's very important that body language and the things that we show the teachers, being a role model on and off the campus, being an ambassador, for what we do and for our school and for our baseball program. We also start talking about grade checks at that time. You have to be eligible to play baseball, but for 18 years now, we have had at least a 3.2 GPA on our baseball team. We fell below that this year, and progress reports come out in next week, and I got some guys sitting on the edge right now because we're getting that fixed. That's one of our priorities. We don't want to just be average. We want to make sure that we excel in the classroom also. One of the things we tell them, if Mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Now, everybody knows that saying. We got another one that we say in baseball. If the math teacher ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Then you think about that. If the English teacher's not happy, then I'm not happy, then Mama's not happy, everybody's unhappy. So we want to keep our teachers happy. And that's just one of our things we try to do. The second thing that we'll do, we'll give our guys a calendar. And that calendar will go from November to May, and it'll have everything possible that we're going to do as a team, from the departure times on games to the events that we go and the things that we do as a group. Yeah, and that goes home and goes right in Mom's hands. And when, Mom knows everything that's going on and the planning that takes place from that communication is very important. To me, the number one problem in the world today is communication. If we communicate, we can all be better people, and we can all solve problems and do what we need to do. The next thing we'll hand them is a playbook. And the playbook is something that we put together several years ago. My secretary typed it, and it's a lot of things wrong in it, misspelled, and a lot of it's all caps. I'm the secretary, matter of fact, so you know. It's something that's very important, and kids start getting in those playbooks. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Then we ask them, we've got to have a physical, you've got to have an emergency medical form, and we're going to meet in 1 week. If you don't have the physical and emergency medical form in 1 week, don't come back. Well, you're thinking, well, that's probably been a little harsh on them, but remember what we talked about, self-discipline, accountability, doing what you're asked to do. Everybody in that room comes back, and everybody sits down, and if we all have those, then we got our job done. That was your first assignment as a baseball player. We give them a pre-test. And the pre-test is obviously, it's nothing but loaded questions. There's 10 questions. How do you hit a baseball? You wouldn't believe the number of guys that say hard. What's the best pitch in baseball? Oh, it's got to be the four-seam curveball that you start right here and break it down right over there. Now, the best pitch in baseball is a strike. How do you handle a girlfriend on game day? You wouldn't believe the answers I get on that. And a lot of times, the best answer is, and the upperclassmen know this, what girlfriend? That's the best answer. All right, then we give them a week. We give them a week for all this to soak in. We have another meeting. At that second meeting this year, we had 40 players. And I didn't send anybody home. There were 6 guys that decided on their own that this, accountability and this discipline, I'm not sure I'm ready for this. And I communicated with a few of them, but most of them just didn't show back up. And, that's fine. I'll take up the code of conduct forms, signed. Now, also, those teachers, they will not, if that slate is not completely clean, they won't sign those. The teachers have done an unbelievable job in this. And they know that they've got a week to get that signed, and they'll take it up, and they'll tell them, well, I'll give it back to you later. That means your slate's not clean. And those guys are bringing apples, they're bringing roses, they're bringing whatever they can do to get on that good side. Try to get back in there, and that's exactly what we want. We want the teacher to be glad to see you coming through that door. We take up the physicals and emergency medical forms, and it's amazing. Every one of them have them. Everyone have them. You look around the team room and you see we're all sitting there out in front of our lockers, and we're looking at each other, and they're all looking at each other. It's like a Mexican standoff. Who looks different? Who's got curls? Whose hair is, who's got a mustache? And everyone looked the same. And I haven't told them to cut anything. I haven't said a word to them. I just want them to look the same. And they do that on their own. And we do have shaving cream and a razor in the restroom, though. We remind them about the calendar and the work days at that point, and the work days that we do and the things that we do on the field. That's another thing. When you take ownership of a facility and you do the work on it, it's amazing that some of the dads will come out and help us, and they'll go, why don't you put Roundup on that? Well, if I put Roundup on that, they don't have to bend their butts over and get it with a rake or shovel and do a little work and push a wheelbarrow. Why don't we get a tractor out here? Well, if we get a tractor out here, they don't have to carry that 5-gallon bucket 200 yards into the woods out there. And you can see the work and the work habits and the things that are starting to be developed at that time. At this point, we actually give them a very extensive playbook test. And the playbook test, there's a lot of kids that can learn. They can look at a playbook and they can learn the system. They know everything we're doing, our relay system, our bunt defenses, our first and third defense. They know everything. You get them out on the field, and they have a hard time performing, but mentally they're ready. And that's what you want. You want it in there mentally. And we'll have time to get the time in and everything physically, but you got to get it in there mentally. Then we have grade check reminders, and we address any issues from some of the classroom teachers that we've had. When I talked at the clinic a couple of weeks ago, I got a lot of strange looks from the coaches when I told them the most important part of practice is the 6 hours that our kids spend in the classroom before they come to practice. And, they're looking at me like, they don't get that. Well, that self-discipline and that accountability and those work habits that are in that classroom, that's what we want, and that's where you develop them. Because, that's one of the big things. It's not necessarily fun. And when it's not fun, can you still do it? Can you still go in there and perform? When you do have a tough teacher, and there's tough teachers, yeah, there are, but I love tough teachers. And those kids go in there and they start making excuses. Well, okay, you got to survive. You got two choices. Either give up or you get your butt in there and do what she wants. And it's amazing the things that kids can do. We associate our GPA with our ERA, our grade point average with our earn run average. If we can work hard in the classroom, we're going to get out there on that field and we're going to do what we need to do as a team. Well, then we got to January, first practice. Guess how many players were there at that first practice? 30 players. 30 players. Now, we actually have 28 uniforms, and we have 30 players right now. We don't send anybody home. We want our players. We'd like to have 100 out there if we can, but we don't send anybody home. So we're sitting there with 30 players. We already know before you hit the field the first practice. You already know what's going to happen. You already know their work habits. You already know their accountability. You know who you can count on because of what's happened in the classroom, what's happened in the work days, what's happened on all the things that have gone on before now. And we're just now hitting the field for that first practice. And I know a lot of people don't understand what we do before that first practice, but that's where we really are who we are and what we develop. And we talk more about the little things, that first practice, the little things. In our code of conduct, in our team rules, we have a no texting rule in driving. We have you have to have your seatbelt on. You have to have your music down low. There's all these things, and those are things when I see them around town, and people see them around town. They know that we have those rules, and I get people calling and telling me, Johnny didn't have a seatbelt on. They'll tell me they're texting and driving. Those things are no different than when we put them on, they get on second base in a game and they've got a ground ball rule and it's 1 out, and they apply that rule. That's no difference. And if they can do that, if they're on third and we said, Dart, you're going down angles this time, they know how to do that. They've got the discipline to do it because it's a little thing. And it is a little thing. It's a little part of the game. But that's what makes a difference. When you get 2 strikes as a hitter, we got a 2-strike drill. We get up on the plate. We widen our stance. We're coming in. We're going to dare you to hit us with the ball and throw inside. That's a little thing, but it wins games, and that's the big part of what we're trying to get across to them. Several years ago we knew where we were as what we did at the baseball field and in the classroom, but we knew something was missing. So we started trying to go and take the kids out there and develop ourselves as a team, and we felt like we need to get them away from the baseball field. We need to get them out there in the community. And thanks to people like Jeff and some of the other ones that have let us come to their facilities, we actually are able to go and do some things as a team. Now, I can use Jeff's place as an example. When you take groups of kids and you put 6 kids in a room with, I don't know how many Alzheimer's patients were in that room, but they all 6 look at each other when that door locks behind them. They all look at each other like, you're my teammate. I know I can depend on you. We're in here together. And they get together and they bond up, and here they go, as a group. When they come out of that Alzheimer's unit and we get back on that bus and we start heading back to the field to practice, you wouldn't believe how close those boys are. Just like the things that we did Tuesday night at the homeless shelter. We went down there thinking that we're so much different than these people. We're not like these homeless people. Our boys got in there and started mingling with those people and talking to those people. We're just alike. Those guys loved baseball when they were that same age. One of them couldn't even talk. He had to write on paper express it to the boys what was going on with his life. And You know, our kids were just like them. I mean, it was amazing. When we got back to the baseball field, you know, all the stuff and the chatter that the boys had, it was all about that. It was all about how much we had in common with those homeless people. And some of them said, Coach, they got, you know, they got it made. They got a place to sleep. They got 3 meals. They got it made down there, you know. So it's a lot about attitude. Another thing we did with our teachers, we have what we call a home run teacher program, where our boys choose a teacher on game day to wear their alternate jersey. And this is another way that we try to get our teachers and our players to go a little bit beyond the classroom and bond a little bit and have a little bit in common. And that teacher that's been so tough, you know, it's amazing who gets that jersey. It's amazing. And the teachers like it. I mean, they get to wear warm-ups or blue jeans that day and relax a little bit, you know, and it's a really neat thing for them. And our boys, you know, when they pick that person, you know, it's a challenge, you know, because they got other teachers. Man, you better pick me. You know, I want it next time. Or, you know, it's all that, and that's doing nothing but making our teachers and our players, you know, close. Another thing we have is our Big Brother program, where our upperclassmen, our juniors, and our seniors will actually have a sophomore or freshman that they take on as a big brother or a little brother. And there's a couple reasons for that. We have a lot of times we do have issues in the classroom where we come out, you know, we may get to the field and I may have got an email from a teacher that Johnny didn't read what he was supposed to in Great Expectations or the Inside or whatever. And it's amazing that in his locker, when he gets to the field, it's amazing the teachers give me a copy of all their books. That Great Expectation book is sitting in that big brother's locker. And he's got to spend the time, not during defense when we're diving out there and on the ground, hitting our nose in there. We're going to take hitting time away from them because they love to hit. They're going to go back in the team room, sit at our table, and they're going to read Great Expectations. That senior is going to read to that freshman and do what we call buddy read. Now, well, you can say what you want to say. Peer pressure, and it doesn't happen but one time. It's amazing. It only happens once because that senior puts that pressure on that young one to get it done. Because I'm not missing my hitting anymore because your lazy butt didn't read what you were supposed to. So it's amazing what you do with pressure. Perspective poster. This is something that we did this year. This is just a real simple. If you want to come out and look at it later, this is just a little simple thing that's at the back of each of the boys' lockers. And there's several different categories here. We make them pick 5 and put a picture on it. Now, I did mine for the kids, and in the center of mine, I had a picture of my great-granddad. I actually talked to you guys the last time I came here about my great-granddad and the passion that he instilled in me. I didn't realize it at the time, but he's the guy that really was behind the passion that I have for baseball. And so a picture of, you know, my great-granddad's right there in the middle of it for passion. A picture of my wife is up in the corner there for toughness. And my wife was a breast cancer survivor. And, you know, I just thought I was tough. You know, that girl. You know, then your friends. You know, you've got friends that have pictures of you and somebody catching a fish or whatever. Well, you go around and you look at all these guys' perspective posters in the back of their lockers and you wonder, what would be the purpose of that? Well, come in there after a tough day at the classroom. That's the first thing they see. They hit that baseball field at 2:30. They walk to that locker and they look at the back of that locker and they see, you know, just they drift away and they get caught, you know, right there in that perspective moment, and it brings them back and they're ready to practice. Or we can have a tough practice and that kid could stink it up that day. He walks right in that team room and looks at the back of that locker and everything's in perspective before he goes home. And we don't want to have bad days. We have a senior father-son retreat at Lake Columbia where it's a real simple thing. We go out and play horseshoes and have a little tournament. We have a hillbilly fishing tournament. You know, we have a frisbee golf tournament, just a little time to get away. And, you know, with that. The last thing I wanted to show you guys, just for me, this sits on my desk in the team room. In perspective, I don't know if y'all can see this or not. This is just a flag. Last year when we're raising money for our championship rings, I got a call from the office and they said, Coach, there's a couple of guys down here that want to holler at you. Well, Miss Long was gracious enough to watch my class, so I eased down that way, and there's these two guys standing there, and one of them's kind of standing with his arms behind him like this, and Robert Turner and Seth Britt, I don't know where y'all know those guys or not, but they're ex-players of mine. And Robert handed me a $100 bill. Coach, hey, man, congratulations, that's what I'm thinking, well, thanks, Robert, and Seth hands me this flag, and he told me, he said, Coach, I just want to thank you. I wore this flag under my vest in Iraq, and the things that you taught me as a player, that self-discipline, that accountability, and all that stuff that we thought was so corny at the time, Coach, that kept me alive, and it kept me safe, and it kept people around me safe. I was able to do the little things over there to survive. So. In perspective, stuff like this is obviously when kids come back to you, it's why I do what I do. Thank
you. Any questions?
Yeah. We're having a tournament this year during spring break, actually, for the first time. We're actually having a tournament. We got 8 teams coming. The A&P Commission has given us some money, Cammie, and we're going to have a really, really good tournament. It's kind of a build-up to see if we can maybe bid on a state tournament. We know we have some parking issues and some things, but we're going to try to work those out, and it's going to be, we hope it's going to be a nice thing. It's going to be a really good tournament.
Anybody pictures of your coach?
We've actually got one that was our senior pitcher is Blake White. He was injured last year. He got a line drive off his foot early in the year and wasn't able to pitch for us. He should be our number one. We've got Alex Watson, who's also a senior pitcher. Then it's going to go right into some of our juniors, Colton McMahon. We don't have a lot of depth right there. We've got several young pitchers. But there's about 12 of them that are getting after it, so we'll see.
What you hear about Hayden Sims?
Hayden actually has been working out, actually getting into our indoor and working out quite a bit. Honestly, Hayden, whenever I see Hayden, we really don't talk about baseball that much. Hayden's been really worn down. Some things happened, in his experience that have been really bad and negative, and he doesn't really want to, you can just tell. When he's ready to talk, he comes to the house and we sit down and we talk, but it hadn't been much of that. He wants to relax, and usually when we talk, it's about deer hunting and things like that. And he's getting stronger. He's put on 10 pounds. He's gained about 8 miles per hour on his fastball, and he's getting back to being Hayden. So I'm really excited about it. I think he's going to be fine, but he's very fragile right now as far as the emotions, and he knows he's let some people down. He's taking it personal. That's why he is what he is. He's a fierce competitor, and he wasn't healthy last year. They tweaked his technique, and they didn't let him train the way he knew to train, and it was a very mental, grinding thing that just wore him out. And but he's back. He's coming back. He's going to have a good year this year.
Is his brother Landon going to be redshirted this year?
No, sir, he's not. He, as a matter of fact, at the clinic I was at 2 weeks ago, Coach Butler was telling me Landon is actually throwing without his brace now. He tore his ACL last year. He's throwing without his brace. He's back to 92 to 94 with his fastball. A lot of movement. He's healthy. He's throwing. He's a middle guy right now, not a starter. He's a middle guy. But in college baseball, you got to have middle guys. And being a freshman and being a middle guy, that's a big deal.
Coach, I see you brought the bat. You want to talk about your new bats this year?
Oh, man. This is our new BB Core bat. You guys will hear probably more about this. This bat, the sweet spot on this bat is probably about the letter S that you see there, as opposed to ESTO last year. So now college has had this for 3 years. This is our first year. This is $300 you're looking at. And you can hit it about as far with a broom handle as you can with this. It was a safety thing. When the ball hits the bat, the aluminum will actually reduce in and then push out. Well, this won't. This will very, very little forgiving stuff, and we're still trying to figure out the best one to buy. We bought Easton, and we've got some of our kids swinging a couple other brands, and one of my ex-players, Kurt McConnell's an outfield coach at Ole Miss, and he said that they're using the Easton. That's why we bought the Easton with our budget money. But now we've also got some kids that have got the Marucci and Rip It and the DeMarini, and they sound better than these bats, but the ball still comes off the same way. It's a safety issue. That's what everybody's saying. It's a safety issue, but we really know why they went to those, and I'm not sure if I need to tell everybody that. Probably not. Okay. But that's what they're wanting everybody to think. It's a safety thing. But
Since
anyway.
y'all won last year, Dr. Moore's doubled your budget, didn't you?
Yes, sir. We have plenty of money and we have plenty of support. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Will the better bat change how you play?
Yes, obviously. We're, number one, your short game is gonna have to be awesome. Your short game defense has gotta be awesome. Your catcher has got to be a guy that can receive and frame and block, but he's also gotta be able to call and run your bunt defenses and plus be able to throw. They get somebody on first, they're not gonna sack bunting to second if they can steal second. So you better have a catcher that can go. And, we worked an hour yesterday on nothing but short game bunt defenses, and it's a little different. It's a little different. It's a little more pressure.